If everybody would like to stand and join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Recognitions.
Yes, we have a special guest with us tonight
Special guests.
from Central School, kindergartner Tim Ryan. Hello, Tim. It's nice to see you.
Hi, Tim.
And the reason Tim is here, we do a unit in our elementary schools every year where the students create different winter scenes in art.
Yep.
And then one of the fun things the superintendent gets to do every year for our holiday card is look at some of the samples from across the district, and Katie and I are the judge, and we pick one to put on our holiday card that I send out to many people as the superintendent of the Simsbury Public Schools. So Tim's work was picked this year, and we have a slide of it we're going to put up on the board. It's beautiful. Yes. Amazing work.
You are a talented artist, sir.
Yes. Do you want to tell us about anything, or no? You don't have to if you don't want to, and that's fine.
Well, thank you for coming and letting us all tell you how much we like your artwork. It's really well done.
You think I could take a picture with you and give you a couple cards to take home with you? Will that work? All right, buddy.
Right.
There you go. All right. Smile.
You were practicing, I could tell. Nice job. Thank you.
Awesome.
All right. Thank you so much. You have great talent. I hope you keep working with art. Do you enjoy it? Coming out. I appreciate it. Have a great night.
Point of
I
personal
love that.
point of personal privilege. I know Tim's daddy very well, and because Tim went to school with my kids, and Timmy, I know your grandpa
Wow.
really, really well, because you know why? Your grandpa cuts our lawn and plows our driveway. So, yeah, so I just saw your grandpa yesterday, as a matter of fact. I know he's very, very proud of you.
That's awesome.
Great.
Have a good night. All right. Take care.
Thank you for coming.
That's a good start.
That's a
That's
great
a great
start. How are we
start.
following that up? All right, public audience would be the way we're going to follow that up. So if there's anybody here who wants to speak to us? Seeing none. Committee reports and board communications. Emily.
Okay, this is a lot less exciting than the holiday card, but December is a very busy time of year for Simsbury high schoolers, so I just wanted to talk a little bit about what's going on. So from like the academic standpoint, this past week and this coming week and I think also last week, we had the capstone presentations for those students that started their capstones last spring. They're now going to be presenting to one faculty evaluator and then to students that choose to come for them. And so those are really interesting. The only thing that I would say from a student perspective is I'm presenting mine next, like in the spring, but no, there's not really that many students that go to the presentations because we have class, so the other students are pulled out of class for the presentations. But I don't think that many other students even know that the presentations are happening. So, but the presentations are so cool. I just think it would be really cool to have some students be able to go to and see like their students, the other peers' work and stuff. That would be really awesome.
Emily, we were just
Chatting
talking
about
about
that
this
today.
today
Oh,
with
great.
Ms. McKay and Ms. Robert, so more to come on that.
Nice.
Thank
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea, especially if you haven't gone yet.
Right, yeah. So I saw like one last year and I was like, this is really cool. Like it would be so nice if everyone could see this, but nobody does. So there's that.
Thank you.
Also, from the performing arts standpoint, it's concert season. So there's an orchestra concert tomorrow, 7 p.m. You should go. And there's the choir one next week. And then the jazz concert was yesterday. And the band concert was the week before that. So super busy time of year for that. And also the juniors and seniors from the choir program opened for the Radio City Rockettes last Friday, which went very well, I hear, so that was very exciting. A lot of buzz about that. Seemed to be very successful. And also, as we all know, in December, there's a lot more charity and fundraising work that goes on just in life, but our school has been taking part in that as well. So we had PJ Day for the kids last Friday, which the proceeds from that went to CCMC for children battling cancer. And every student who wore PJs to school was encouraged to donate $1, and then that money was donated. And I think this also happened in Squadron and a couple of other schools.
Happened at all 7.
All the schools. Oh my gosh.
All
that's
7
great.
participated.
I think our estimation for Simsbury High School was $1,100.
Wow.
So that's awesome. And obviously that fundraiser, it's really easy for students to participate. You just wear PJs and then bring money. But on the other hand, there's other fundraisers that are equally as important but harder to participate in, like the Triumph Music Honor Society and the Technical Honor Society is hosting a toy drive this week, where there's like a big red box in the lobby and you like put toys in it. But most students don't remember to bring toys into school unless their parents tell them to. So I just think the visibility of that is a little bit, it's tougher to kind of execute a fundraiser like that because it's harder for students to just do it. So involvement in fundraising is a real challenge besides just wearing your PJs that I think we
PJ
have
Day
to,
district-wide, $15,000.
wow, that's awesome.
That's great.
That's great.
Yeah. But other than that fundraiser, I think there's probably ways we can, as a school, figure out how to get more kids involved in
Okay.
fundraising.
Great.
Yeah. Maybe you do PJ Day and collect the money and use it to buy the toys.
Right. That's true. I feel like money is easier to donate than actual toys, and no one would have a problem wearing PJs multiple days.
Just saying. There you go. Thank you.
Thanks.
Mr. Watson.
All set.
Jen.
I had the privilege, wanted to share, that I went to the showing of Screenagers on, I don't know, one day this week. Nope, that was last week. Last week. I don't remember what it was. It was really interesting, and I have to give a shout out to Maggie and to, I don't remember the other people there. Do you remember?
Yeah, Sarah Maher was on the panel, and then Jacqueline Petrella, obviously, and Scott Baker. And then we had 2 student representatives, Matt Pico and Braden Marati. They were both our student reps that sat on the panel to answer questions.
Yeah, and it was super interesting. There was a lot of people there, which I haven't been to a lot of parent-driven stuff like that, but it was super interesting. It was a great talk, and having the students there, whoever's idea that was to call that, was fantastic. Like, they were chatty, telling us, you know, how to get these kids with their screens, and it was fascinating. I loved it. I thought it was great. I learned a couple of things, and it was really interesting.
Great.
Terrific. Mr. Burek.
The only thing I have, the Personnel Negotiations Committee met before this meeting, primarily to prepare for some upcoming negotiations. And, yeah, that's it.
Yeah, I do. Just a few things. We had a CREC council meeting 2 weeks ago, and we had a great presentation from Robin Cecile from the State Department of Education, and she had talked about the chef settlement where we are now in the end of 2022, and what's going to be happening come 2023 in terms of some structural changes within SDE. So I'm glad that Dr. Basher is going to be, having a presentation later about some of these things that we had heard about also in terms of magnets, in terms of choice, within CREC region. Then I also attended last week, the Council of Urban Education annual conference, and this is held every year, and this is really a very interesting conference, and I go on behalf of NSBA, and also because I am CREC chair, so we do represent several several urban districts, but this is about 800 colleagues from around the country, majority of small, large, medium urbans from around the country, and they really are there to address the challenges that are affecting the urban districts and urban centers around the country. So it was a great high-powered conference, and Dr. Naomi Tutu, Reverend Bishop Tutu's daughter, spoke to us and was a keynote speaker, and very, very powerful, resonated with every board member that was there. So this is always a great conference to find out really what's going on with colleagues around the country representing urban districts. And then closer to home, we had our CABE CAPS conference, and Sue was there and Matt were there also. And it was a successful conference. We had about 600 attendees over the 2.5-day course of conference. And some of the highlights, we discussed the delegate assembly and what we're going to be doing now, for the legislative platform that we're going to be presenting when legislature opens up in January. So we have several proposed resolutions, and just some of them were about school climate, culture, safety, student achievement assessment, government regulations, program policy, early care, and professional development, and then funding or revision of Connecticut General Statute was the big one. So on top of that, there are now even more working groups and that have been put into place. And of course, as I mentioned before, a lot of these working groups probably have not met within a year, never mind within COVID, but they are going to be put in place now about special ed, pre-K, mandate, and a number of other things. So I'll keep you posted on that because this is going to be our agenda for the next few weeks once we are meeting with our legislators in Hartford. Last year they were not in person, they were all over Zoom, so we're really hoping this year that we're going to have the chance to meet with them in January in person. And then of course we have our Day in the Hill in March, so we have a lot, and it's a long session this year, so we have an awful lot to cover in Hartford between all of us. And then the conference was great. The theme was public education, moving forward all children, and we, Simsbury Board of Education, received an award, and for a Level 1 award for the Board of Education Leadership Award. And this is it, and attached to this, it is CABE Board of Education Board Recognition Award for high standards, dedication, teamwork, Simsbury Board of Education. So I thank you all, my colleagues and administration and everyone else that helped us to get to this level here. And we have a little plaque to put on. I don't even know where the plaque is. It's used to be here somewhere.
Yes,
It's here.
it's here. It's somewhere.
It's here
It's somewhere.
in the office somewhere. So that is it. So Dr. Curtis, that is for you, and you can take your screwdriver out and you can attach that right to the
Gorilla glue, whatever
right
works.
to the plaque. There
you.
you go. So.
All right. Sharon, I don't want to put you on the spot. You good? Okay. All right. Mrs. Lemke.
Two quick things. Last week, our high school students returned to their elementary schools, and under the direction of Maggie Seidel and Melissa Farrington, computer science teacher, participated in the Hour of Code. So it was pretty cool. I got a chance to pop into the classrooms and see students experimenting and trying some different coding techniques and skills. Mine were tested as well. I was trying to make this little guy move around the screen. I'm not going to tell you about my success with that, but the event,
That's what's
I tried. The event overall extremely successful, and thank Maggie and Melissa for that. The second piece of information is our families at the high school should have received a message from Mr. Milch, who is our math department supervisor, and we are collecting some information around math tutors and want to get a better sense of how often they're accessed and to address some needs that we might have. So if you haven't filled out that survey, I would encourage you to do so. We're going to close it down at the end of this week and send out a reminder.
That's great. That's great. Good information, yeah.
So the board is always aware of our certified retirees because you're required to take action on them, but not always our non-certified retirees. And this is actually a time of year when some of our non-certified folks retire because it's the end of the calendar year as opposed to our school year. And two really important ones here in our central office team. Terry Heinz, our benefits coordinator for over 25 years, taking care of our employees with their insurance needs and everything else that goes into her work. And she's done expertly for 25 years and well-deserved in her retirement. And also Kira Sheehan, who is our accountant, who was brought in by Burke LeClaire and now Amy Merriweather, and one of the people that can really make sure that the superintendent isn't fudging the budget numbers. She keeps him honest about things. Kara's been with us for over 10 years, and both of them, their last day in the office will be December 23rd, and our team up here will miss them greatly. So, but we've already celebrated them once. We have one other breakfast on the last day. Just want to congratulate both Terry and Kara for their contributions to the Simsbury Public Schools.
Yes, and thanks for their service for so long. That's great. Jason?
Nothing at this time.
Okay. Mr. Curtis?
Two quick things. Just we're going to talk about the budget calendar later on in the board meeting tonight. But we've started our individual meetings with principals and with directors this week. So those are going well. The presentations are always very thoughtful. And just the other piece is they have broken ground at Latimer. I know we've communicated things out to the general public and our staff about the upcoming referendum. And we have a flyer a newsletter rather, that will go out to all residents in Simsbury, hopefully by the end of this week. We'll get it next week, describing those details. But it's exciting to see the major equipment moving earth over at Latimer Lane. So
Yes.
long anticipated.
I was gonna say, so we got done out of our groundbreaking due to the snow. I was very excited to go to that because that project predates my tenure on the Board of Ed.
A long time
It's been
coming.
a long time coming, and I would just like to, because I would have done it at the groundbreaking. Had we
Yes.
had it, I would like to say to Matt, Sue, Neil, Jason, to Jeff Tyndall, who chaired facilities and enrollment, to Jeff Wazinski, who partnered with us in all those many, many community meetings that we went to. And to everybody who served on the facilities and enrollment task force, a huge thank you. I rode by the school and I saw the ground moving, and nothing made me happier. It's so great to see that as a town, we are moving this project forward together. And I do hope everybody pays attention and comes out January 7th. We're gonna have voting right here in Town Hall. But it's a great thing to see that project undertaken. And I look forward to the positive changes for the school system.
Yeah, and these processes and obviously the dollars involved are so large. I want to thank the Board of Selectmen certainly, because they are charged with capital projects, and collaboration with the Board of Finance as well. In kind of this interesting little time period where we had to look at inflationary costs and how we were going to manage them, so.
Right, and I think, that, people forget there's a long timeline from when it passes at referendum to when we get the shovels in the ground. And inflation has kind of wreaked havoc with all of that. So everybody did a fabulous job to the best that they could, and kind of through good planning, we were able to keep that number in check as best we could.
Absolutely.
So,
Yep.
thank you all. And that's all I have. So now we are on to approval of minutes of the November 10th meeting. Can I get a motion on that, please?
I just, one typo that I didn't realize until just now. I don't know if you want to. About 2/3 of the way down, page 2, it's got Lisa, the BOE chairperson.
Anything else? All right, so then, can I get a motion to approve the minutes as amended?
I'll make the motion to approve the minutes as amended.
And a second, please?
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. Approval of minutes of the November 15th meeting. Can I get a motion on that?
Move to approve the minutes from November 15th meeting.
And a second?
Second.
Pardon? You can vote
Okay.
whether to approve the minutes, yes. You don't have to have been present at the meeting to approve the minutes. To have been present at the meeting to to approve the minutes. Right, right. So, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Acceptance of gift from Ensign Bickford.
I will start this one off and then hand it over to Maggie Seidel. So as the board is aware, Ensign Bickford has been a tremendous community partner with us. They have donated their time, their expertise, and their money, quite honestly, to advance the STEM programming for students K-12. And here they are at it again. So I'm going to hand it over to Maggie Seidel to introduce Edris, Sean, and Zach. And they have another 3-year gift, and they are making their first installation this evening. Maggie.
Thank you so much. This is such a great opportunity to be here. We thank you so much from all of the 7 schools. One of the things that John C. Latwinick started before she had retired was this partnership and the work with Ensign Bickford, and it just continues, and actually the donation has become more generous. So I just wanted to say thank you. Part of that donation goes to the robotics team, so our first robotics team at Simsbury High School gets a donation each of the 3 years for their work, a lot of the things that they have to purchase, and some of the fees to get into some of the activities that they do. And then there's money, there's $10,000 each year that's been set aside to really enhance our vision of the graduate competencies through the work of STEM. So that's really exciting. We've put lots of stuff into our elementary school. Some of that was featured at our STEM night the other night, where little things like cuplets, where we're teaching kids how to code and to manipulate, our Ozobots, and lots of other opportunities. You want to see kids engaged and really problem solving and thinking and collaborating, come check out one of these opportunities. So we thank you so much for this opportunity. We'll continue to keep you informed with lots of pictures and opportunities that come out through the district. So I mean, come see, please, come see the things that we've got going on and what the kids are doing. I welcome any of you. It's in all 7 of our buildings, so the STEM lab at Henry James, all the way down to each of the libraries at the elementary schools. And then obviously Dr. Koo at Simsbury High School continues to work together with this particular grant, and we appreciate it.
No, thank you. Yeah, there's not much to say after that. Yeah, we're happy to be here. All 3 of us have children in the school system, so I think Sean and I were both at that STEM night, and our kids were out there playing. So it brings a lot of pleasure for us to invest in the community and represent Ensign Bickford and have this partnership. So looking forward to that. We've got another 3-year grant, like you said, for another $37,500. So I think this brings us to closely $100,000 since 2016.
That's
I'm looking
fabulous.
forward to
Amazing.
pursuing that. So.
Well, thank you very much for this partnership, and
If you don't mind, we'd love to take a
Yeah,
picture
we've
of
got,
here. Yes,
clearing
that's
house
awesome.
picture.
Where's the best spot?
Who else get?
Would you like us to?
Yeah, go ahead.
I would have trusted you. You guys got it one day. I would have trusted myself.
Where you going? I'm in front of you. So.
Okay.
Just for 12,500, because this is just the first of 3.
Okay.
And I'm the check.
I'm just gonna look this way.
Customers.
If you come with me.
I sell to them.
Hopefully people can see me here.
I have 34 customers in Connecticut, and then one of them will win.
Great, thank you
Thank
so
you very
much.
much. Really appreciate it.
Really
Appreciate
Yeah,
it.
Thank
Really.
you. Appreciate it.
I'm glad you got to see it working in the school.
Thanks for coming
Thanks
out.
for coming out. Oops, sorry.
Always appreciate
Thank
it.
you. Appreciate it.
Thank you again.
So there is a motion for the board's consideration
To actually accept the gift? Okay, we can do that. We certainly can. So can I get a motion to accept that very generous gift, please?
I'll move that the proposed gift of $12,500 to STEM K-12 from Ensign Bickford Aerospace and Defense Company be accepted.
And I'll second that motion with much gratefulness and for Ensign Bickford for continuing to do this.
Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, thank you very much. Motion passes. It's such a great partnership we have with them. I'm so grateful. Acceptance of a gift to SHS First Robotics.
Another gift. So, part of my duties when we get a gift before us is to do a little research. And this gift is from the estate of Shirley Johnson. So I said, I don't recognize that name. Let me do a little more research. Who is Shirley Johnson? Well, very long story short, one of our staff members, spouse's boss it was the executor of her aunt's estate, and the wishes of the aunt's estate was to give to efforts through education. And so they heard about our first robotics, so as many degrees of separation. Miss Johnson was a resident of the Washington DC area. She didn't have any ties to Simsbury, but the executor of her estate felt that this was an extremely appropriate gift because of the value Miss Johnson placed on education. So this will be used towards a new robot, and the Robotics Club has made a motion to name the robot Shirley in her honor for this gift. So that is the background, and there is a motion there for your consideration.
That's fantastic. That's a great story.
That is
Thank you for
great.
that for us. Can I please get this motion?
Move that the proposed gift to the first robotics team at Simsbury High School from the estate of Shirley Johnson totaling $5,000 be approved.
A second, please. Second. Any discussion?
Welcome, Shirley.
I can't wait to meet Shirley. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. Another gift.
More
This
gifts.
is a
There's
great.
two more.
Merry Christmas, happy holidays. It's a good time.
This one is from the class of 1970. These are extra funds that they had after their 50th reunion celebration. And having that excess, they decided that it would be great to give them back to Simsbury High School to be used to further student activities. So that's the background on this gift, and there's a motion there for your consideration.
So just into the general activities fund?
Yes, Student
That's
Activities
terrific.
Fund.
Love it. Can I get a motion, please?
Move that the proposed gift to the Student Activity Fund at Simsbury High School from the class of 1970 totaling $4,000 be approved.
In a second?
I can second it.
Any discussion? Thank you all, class of 1970, very generous.
Great.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Okay, yet another.
And the
gift.
final gift for this evening, it's become customary for the elementary parent-teacher organizations, or PTOs, each to make a donation to the district's cultural enrichment committee. And this committee then decides different activities and opportunities that they will provide the students through this lens. So before you is a combined gift of $17,430 for that purpose.
Terrific. It's a great tradition they continue. Motion, please? Okay. So
I
Karen,
move that the proposed gift of funds from all elementary school parent-teacher organizations to provide cultural programming to elementary school students be accepted.
a second, please.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Thank you to all PTOs.
Thank you.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Those are a bunch of great motions right there.
Yes.
All right, now we are on to the approval of the Board of Ed meeting schedule. So this is, we always lay out the full schedule for the calendar year. And once again, at my request, every other meeting will be in a different school building so that we can get into the community, make it easier for them to see us, let us see the buildings and all the great work that goes on in them. So, I would need a motion to approve the meeting schedule as outlined.
I'll move move that the Board of Education set their 2023 meeting schedule as outlined in the December 13th, 2022 Board Exhibit 7.
Second?
I can second.
Thank you. Yeah, discussion.
Do some of these dates alter once, like when we don't have school, like some of these dates, April break?
We typically would cancel
As it gets
or-
closer or
Yep,
something?
Yes.
Yep, as we see what's going on.
Okay.
Yep.
You'll see the February meeting is on Wednesday because of Monday and Tuesday.
Yes, do note that February's meeting is on a Wednesday.
Okay.
Okay. All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right, so there we go. Information and reports.
All right, Dr. Batchelor is with us this evening.
So good to see you.
Come
Thanks for
on
coming
up.
to see us.
So this was at the board request. I'll hand it over to Sue to tee up a little bit in terms of a program update, a program review, our open choice program with students from Hartford. We're one of the original districts to get involved. So long-standing support of the program in our district, and I will give it to Sue, who will kind of round out what we're going to hear from tonight and have a good opportunity for any questions that you might have after Taya works through her slides.
Okay.
Sure, terrific. So this evening, Dr. Batchelor has prepared a variety of informational points for you. She'll review a little bit of the historical background of what has brought us to open choice, which is the Sheff versus O'Neill case and the decisions thereby creating open choice, which used to be known as Project Concern. A little historical information, highlights over the past 50 years and where we've been and where we're going. She will also highlight some promotional strategies that we are using to encourage our families to participate in open choice. She will share our current enrollment. She'll share some performance of our students, both academic, behaviorally, socially. She will touch upon some next steps of continuous improvement and where we see open choice going in the future with Simsbury Public Schools. So, Dr. B, I turn it over to you.
Thank you. And the gift that I have this evening will be the gift of theater. So I'm going to say that. So we will see a performance.
Great.
So Simsbury Open Choice, as Ms. Lemke said, has started actually before the Sheff versus O'Neill case, because Simsbury was one of the first districts to introduce Project Concern. And I think we should start with Superintendent Matt Curtis. He has a great way of grounding the work, and these are his words: if we fail to expose our students to diversity, we fail to prepare them for a globalized world. And I love that quote. I don't know if you remember saying that, but
I do. That was part of the 50-year celebration when we were having conversations at the Open Choice office with Craig. Yeah, I do remember that.
And it speaks not just to our open choice students, but the vision of a graduate and what we're hoping for all students. So we'll start there. And seeing some of our students graduate last year, it was nice to see them enjoy their graduation in person and just be thrilled to be together. So I won't go over the highlights again, but I do, is that me? I do want you to take a look at the picture here to see that there's many players involved in the open choice. We have the State Department of Education, we have CREC, and of course we have our Superintendent, Matt Curtis. We're celebrating the long-standing work and commitments, and we're also looking at our commitment to continuous improvement when we look at our choice program. So the primary purpose of open choice is to improve academics, but it's also to look at the racial, ethnic, and economic isolation. And that was the purpose of Sheff versus O'Neill. Their case was really about providing all students the chance of choice and having opportunities. So I want you to continue to think about that when we talk about the enrollment and the strategies, to go back to the purpose. And now here is my gift. Here's my gift of theater. You may remember this.
Hi, my name is Mike Lizzetti. I'm the principal here at Loudoun Lake School. With me are Elijah and Asaya. These are two of our fantastic choice kids. Of our 23 who attend here, we work really hard to incorporate our kids and really make them feel like Simsbury is their home. I hope that you will consider Simsbury as a school for your kid.
Hi, I'm Nikki Mahan, the Director of Children's Academy Preschool Program here in Simsbury, where we offer a full-day program for children 3 and 4 and enable them to learn through play. Every day they participate in activities that help them become confident and enthusiastic learners. We hope you consider Children's Academy Preschool Program here in Simsbury for your child.
Hi, I'm Neil Sullivan, the Director of Personnel for the Simsbury Public Schools and the liaison to the Open Choice Program. Simsbury has had an incredibly strong commitment to the Choice Program. We just celebrated our 50th anniversary. We're looking for families and students who want to come to Simsbury and work hard to take advantage of our amazing academic opportunities, our rich array of elective and extracurricular programs, and our commitment to character education. Please consider the Simsbury Public Schools for your family.
So that was a blast from the past.
Young fella.
blast from the past, and I wanted to start there because this work is not new work. We're veterans in this work, and we've done a great job of sustaining throughout the times, throughout the changes. So I wanted to start there. We talked a little bit about some of the historical background, but if we,
I'm sorry for interrupting.
yeah, sure.
But what was that? I mean,
So that was the celebration of 50 years of Project Concern. And because Simsbury is one of the first of 5, they did a segment where they congratulated Simsbury. And I found that and I thought, you know what, let's start here because we look at how much we've developed over time and how our program has sustained throughout. CREC has had a difficult time sustaining some of their numbers, as you know, and the enrollment across districts, acceptance rates, but Simsbury continues to be one of the premier choices. And so I wanted to go back to that.
Right, okay, thanks.
I remember they played it at the fair that they hold.
Okay.
Yeah.
Where they're trying to, I mean, families have choices of many different towns that they could choose from. So part of it is the 3 of us saying, we really hope you'll put Simsbury at the top of your list.
Right, and that's why I was asking, because you were, okay, no,
That
that's,
was 2016.
Yes, and don't worry, we're gonna go to
Okay.
2022. We have more. We have more. Another highlight in the historical background was also in 2012, Simsbury became one of the first districts to implement the preschool program in conjunction with Open Choice. So that partnership has continued, and that is one of our enrollment strategies. You know, we get our students in as preschool, we partner with our families, and we keep them here throughout graduation. So it really is a commitment to our students, starting when they're very young. So going back to choice, there are 4 different zones. And our students can select from any of the zones in the first zone in which we are. And families can select up to 5 choices in the lottery. So when we talk about our acceptance rates, we have to recognize that families are selecting Simsbury for reasons. And they can choose up to 5 schools. And also, high school gets to include 3 additional schools, which are the technical schools. So the way that we partner with families from the onset is very important.
Can they choose multiple towns in a zone or
Yes, absolutely. They can choose up to 5.
or across zones, different zones?
Within
or
their
is it
within
only
their
one?
zone, within
They
one
gotta
zone,
choose a
within their zone.
Okay.
Yes.
Gotcha. Thank you.
So here are some of our enrollment strategies. I'm going to start with the seat declaration because this is the tricky part for Mr. Sullivan. So Mr. Sullivan partners with the Open Choice, ensuring that families that have special requests because they have multiple students across different grade levels, he's always willing to open seats when we need seats to be open, but he also balances that with our class sizes. So it starts with Mr. Sullivan crunching the numbers and seeing what opportunities are there for students to come, and then how do we address family needs if they need additional seats. Throughout the process, we have a welcoming phone call that is very personalized, and that's Nikki, myself, Gertrude Banks, and all the principals. So families from the onset, once they decide that we are part of their choice, we not only want to encourage them to accept, but we also want to know what are some of the barriers that you might face. Is there any questions that we can answer? And also for the students and families that choose not to come, we also want to know why. So is it because we don't have the capacity to fill their needs, or is it a personal family choice? We want to make sure that we are a good fit for our families, and so that's really good information. We also have our Open Choice Family Orientation. So families come in the fall, they come in the summer, they get to come and participate in school tours. We invite parents to family meetings, and currently Gertrude Banks and I are leading a book club with our Open Choice families.
And can you just share who Gertrude is?
Yeah.
Dr.
Yes, Gertrude Banks is the school choice liaison, so that's one of the strategies, and I will share some information about Gertrude and the work that she's doing.
Is she K-12 or just the high school?
So she works K-12 on some information and some strategies, but in terms of the programs that she herself provides, it's middle school and high school. Another big enrollment strategy is having our preschool cohort, again, collaborating with CREC and SEED. So some of the funds that we have does supplement and support SEED. And SEED is important as an enrollment strategy, not just because it provides after-school care for families that need it, but it's also an opportunity for our students to be a part of the culture and the climate after school. So that's an opportunity for us to continue to look at racial desegregation. Now, in terms of the open choice acceptance rates, as I said before, in 2018, we started to see a decline in families reaching out through CREC and going to magnet schools. So it's not just CREC, it was also magnet schools. At that time when there was a decline, Simsbury was one of the districts that continued to maintain 4% of the population coming from open choice. And even today, you can see in 2022, 40% of our families have accepted. And that's in comparison to 34% in our zone and 39% for overall for all of the zones. So as you can see, Simsbury really dedicates the time and puts the time and effort into making sure that our enrollment strategies are working for our families.
Quick question. I don't recall exactly when the zones came in, but that's relatively new. Do you feel like that's hindered enrollment, pushing families towards a specific zone? Because I think they had a broader choice before that, no?
They did have a broader choice, but one of the reasons why they went to the zone is there's a difference between accepting and maintaining in the program. And so what CREC and what we're looking for is for students to be able to make on-time graduation and staying in a district. And by providing students with certain zones that were either closer to them geographically, and making sure that when CREC provides their support, they're providing it to a specific area, it's more likely that students will stay in the program. So that was part of the reason why that change has been
The zone
made.
is based on their geography. It's not a choice. There's,
You're
okay,
assigned a
that,
zone.
I misunderstood
Yeah,
that
that's
earlier.
why
It
Thank
helps, so the transportation is a factor of,
Yeah.
so the zone in Hartford, that is the northwest suburbs, is that quadrant of Hartford.
Sort of the western
Yeah.
side of Hartford.
Like as you go down Albany Avenue, that's sort of where our zone is.
Okay, okay.
And you have to also consider open choice is not just about the day academics.
Sure.
It's also about sports and after school activities. Do students, when our students are in high school, are they taking opportunities to work after school? So they looked at all of those other factors also.
You know, it certainly makes a little bit of sense, like you want to be able to participate fully. If it's closest to home, that's going to make that a little more possible.
And being close to home is relative.
Right.
You know, some of our students have to wake up at like 5 o'clock in the morning and get on the bus very early, and it's a very long ride.
They're very dedicated.
They're very dedicated. And so that's part of us making sure that we are servicing them and providing those supports so that they stay. So our current students, we currently have 166 total students. Here is the breakdown. And so now let's talk about student supports. So once our students are enrolled and they are our students, they are Simsbury students, what are the supports that we have for students to be successful? One of the biggest strategies is using our school liaison. So liaison, it comes in two different forms. So Mr. Sullivan is the liaison in terms of reporting to the state and looking at seat declarations. But the in-house person who works with the families, who has the closest relationship with the choice families and the students, is Gertrude Banks. She's a school liaison. In addition to having a liaison and staff, every single day she's here. She doesn't work for anyone but Simsbury, so she's here with our students. We also have secondary level intervention programs. We have summer enrichment academy programs. We have mentoring. We have after-school clubs and programs. So I just want to take a minute to talk about elementary, middle, and high school, just to break down some of those supports. So some of the highlighted supports for elementary is the Summer Learning Academy, school-wide celebrations, which are the cultural events, bringing storytellers in, the welcome breakfast, and again, Seed. Some of the programs at Henry James under student supports are the Young Men's and the Girls Empowerment and their mentoring program. And in terms of the Young Men's and Girls Empowerment, what we're really looking at now is how to make these programs inclusive for all students. And then at the high school, we have the Help Center, there's tutoring, field trips, a lunch bunch group, and of course, mentoring. So those are some of the ports. When we start to talk about the financial dollars that we receive, and if you ask how are we spending those funds to support our students, these are some of the ways that we're doing that.
Can you talk to me a little bit about the mentoring piece? Like, who are the mentors and how are they chosen? Or
Absolutely. So right now there's 3 different mentoring programs. So one that I'm going to highlight later is.
Sorry if I'm getting out
No,
of
no,
order.
no. Great questions. So some of the mentoring program that I think is the one that I want to highlight is the one with the Legacy Foundation and the Boulay. And I want to highlight that because it's not just supporting our choice students, but it's supporting our BIPOC student population. If we look back at our data, so yes, we have Black and Brown students who are on choice, but we also have Black and Brown students that live in Simsbury. For instance, we have 117 Black students that are not choice students that live in Simsbury, and then we have 108 who are an open choice. And so we're also looking for ways to decrease that racial isolation and support our open choice students and our students that are here. So what I like about this mentoring program is that it does just that. So it's an opportunity for all of our BIPOC students to be involved. Another program that has mentoring is the After School Mentoring Club, where they come in and they meet with Gertrude Banks during the day, and she goes over some of their academic success. The students have goals that they set with their mentor, and then she's the person who provides the data. They come in twice a week and they meet individually with the students, and then they engage in different programs and discussion and different activities. So there's 2 different types of mentoring. One is the one-on-one mentoring, and the other is the whole group together, which is the Boulay. Interesting also, Greg Jones and the Legacy Foundation, they started working with us last year at Henry James. And through that, they're expanding their program. They actually met with Doug McCrory at the state, and they met with Craig, and they're going to be receiving some dollars to expand their mentoring program. So we're one of the 10 districts that are going to have the full-blown program.
That's great.
So specifically, what does the school liaison do? Well, she works with administration, and I've already talked a little bit about what she does with data, but she's also the person that supports the homework club, the Student Achievement Center, and tutoring. So she's the person that gets to sit with the principal and identify some of the needs, looking at data and working with teachers. And she also co-facilitates the Parent and Guardians of Color support group. She partners with community organizations which provide the mentorship. She coordinates peer mediation groups, and a big part of her job is actually coordinating the transportation also, so that students have the opportunity to participate in the after-school activities and events. So she's, again, hands-on in the school, in the building, supporting the students and communicating with their families.
I have a question. So you said regarding transportation, so does that include sporting events as well?
Yes, so she works with the district to ensure that we know which students need transportation. If families need transportation to get to an event, she's also the person to contact for transportation. We have students that are in choir, a lot of different activities, and so she coordinates that, working along with Jeff Penny.
Do the students know that they should reach out to her?
Yes, she meets with students, absolutely. But it is a system. So she coordinates the system, and she works with the office staff so the students know how to sign up. The parents know how to receive information about even if the buses are late, she's the contact person.
Right, there's a coordination that happens at the beginning. These buses change a little bit with each sports season. So there will be a bus that comes at 4:30, and then there might be another one that comes at 6:30 for students who are participating in those activities. So you can't have a bus operating all the time, so Gertrude and the athletic director coordinate, like, what are the best couple of times we can have so that people can participate, but not be waiting around till 6:30 before they can get home. Because we talked about how long the day is on the early end. The day can get long on the late end too. So that's part of what they're doing.
And Simsbury, we're so fortunate to have so many different sports, but it's almost that there's so many that it poses a problem because they can't all practice at the same time. So a lot of coordination, but also a lot of programming. So part of the homework club comes out of where are students going to go? And we know that if we don't have a homework club and students are here until 8, 9 o'clock, are they going to go home at 10 o'clock and do their homework? No. So also problem solving and thinking of ways to support our students that are going to be here. There's also a component of ordering pizza on days that they're going to be staying late for choir. So she's involved with Jeff Penny a lot, and also the gospel choir, just to make sure that the students have the support that they need when they're here. So program funding, in total, Simsbury receives over $1.3 million in grant awards. And here's just a breakdown of how those dollars come to the district and for what purpose. All of the programs that we talked about, mostly the academic and social support grants, those are under number 3. So receiving money for professional development, we didn't talk about that, but that is where we take a look at our discipline data and identify different strategies that we might want to focus on if we were to see that some of our open choice students or students that are in other designations are having more difficult time or need some support. So that's where we can use those $5,000 for professional development. And we also use the $8,000 for enrollment because we have 4% of our population that are actually coming from choice. And again, that is not an easy task to maintain over the years, especially in this climate. But thanks to Mr. Sullivan and his team, we are still maintaining that 4%. So climate and culture, I just want to talk about 2 different types of programs because the purpose, again, is not just for academics, but we know that it's also about climate and a welcoming environment. And I love the gospel choir because that's one example where we are using some of our choice funds and the goals of the program to support all students. We have students that would not ordinarily be together because they're in different grade levels, they're in different programs, but they come together for gospel choir. And not just the students, also the staff. So we have staff members that are participating in the gospel choir also. And to the right, you see the support group, which is a mentorship for the boys. And this is important also because it's a BIPOC group. So you have some of the students that are Simsbury residents that are involved in the mentorship. And you should see the boys in this group. They are phenomenal. They start at 7:15. They have a breakfast. And Mr. Jones has a saying about having skin in the game. And they practice speeches and they're lively and they enjoy not just being able to be with men of color, but also people who hold them accountable and come back and ask about those grades. Their next component that they're working on is to engage more of the families so that the students can have the full effect of the program and take advantage of Saturday Academy and all of the field trips that they have for the students. But the students have to perform. So it's not just we come in, we talk to you, we feel good. The students have to meet them halfway and they have to have some performance.
just wanted to mention something quick about the gospel choir. I think that the choir program in the high school is really fantastic, but the gospel choir I think is the heart of that program because it does bring in so many people that don't normally, like they might not take choir classes, but they come for gospel choir anyways. And it's people from all walks of life, all different grades, and it's probably the best attended after school club in the school, and everyone loves seeing the performances at the concert, so it's really awesome.
I didn't realize it wasn't part of the formal curriculum, that it was an after-school voluntary club.
Voluntary,
That's
yes.
a huge distinction. That's fabulous. Oh, I love that.
Thank you. It is fabulous. I can't sing, but I go. I just feel good. I do. I feel good when I leave. You know, and just seeing the students. We have some students that are very shy, that ordinarily wouldn't talk, and then they have friendships. They develop friendships. So it's nice to see that.
That's great.
We're focusing on student engagement. Mr. Curtis started us off this year with how do we re-engage and what does engagement look like? So when I put this slide together, I was really thinking about what are we doing right now? I want to make sure that you visualize what it feels like right now for our choice students. So I pulled out a couple of bullet points to show the success of what we're doing now. So the homework club that we have after school that is voluntary, what Ms. Banks does is she meets with our school counselors, and she identifies students that would be good candidates. And then she also meets with Jeff Penny to look at students that have the available time. And then she'll talk to the students about utilizing the homework club. So there were 6 students this past semester that really utilized the homework club, and they were able to advance their grade in one or more subject area for last semester. Then we had 9 students who attended the Eastern College Tour in October. 47% of our choice students have already participated in fall sports, and an out-of-district student was one of 17 students chosen to represent Simsbury High School for the Sportsmanship Conference. I don't know what that is. I'm not a sports person, but it also shows that it's not separate. Like once you're here, you are part of the family. You are part of Simsbury Public Schools. And the Students of Color Alliance Group is working with staff to identify ways to attract more students of color to the AP course. So we're working on that student voice and advocacy, and so this is student engagement. Now, in terms of academic success, I am going to share on my next slide some SBAC data that looks across upper elementary and middle school. But I want to start with high school because at the end of the day, our students need to leave here exhibiting the 6 competencies of the vision of a graduate. And if our students go through our program and they don't do that, then I don't think we're meeting their needs. And then it's, why did we bring students here to Simsbury for the opportunity if they can access it? So I wanted to take a look at some of our high school data, and then we'll go backwards. So currently, of our choice students, 82% of them are in college prep courses. 13% are currently enrolled in honors or AP courses, which is, of course, an increase, and 90% are on track for on-time graduation. So that's looking at our work. Now, that also means that we have to continue to work on closing the opportunity gap and closing the achievement gap. So this is a slide that really shows our goals for continuous improvement. So looking across the percentage of students at goal or above in ELA and SBAC, it is 23% for open choice students. Now I put Hartford in parentheses at the bottom, and I'm going to put a disclaimer out there. I love Hartford. I came from Hartford, and I know they're doing great work. But part of the reason why our students are coming here is to have an opportunity, an engagement opportunity. And so I do want to share that although we haven't closed the gap, if you compare to their district schools, they're at 19%. So they're slightly above. We also want to take into consideration our students that are open choice are also having programs that support other students, like our mentoring and our tutoring. So 41% of our Black students are on goal, 64% of Hispanic, and 79% for white students. So again, we are still working on continuous improvement, but if our students stayed in their Hartford district, we are showing that they are performing higher than they would have. and the same for math. So their percentage in math is 22% and Hartford is 12.
Hi, is that a grade roll up like 3 through 6 cumulative?
This is SBAC, yes, so
Right,
3 and up.
3 through 6, okay.
Yes. So here are our next steps. So we are focused on increasing family partnership, and we're doing that through our book clubs and our hybrid events. So one thing that we did learn from COVID is that, parents will show up if we give them the opportunity to join us virtually. And so we've continued to keep that going with our technology. So when we meet with our families for our open choice programs, we do a hybrid model. So some are in person and some are virtual. We're going to identify more strategies to address the barriers to engagement. Some of the barriers that we know of is transportation, some is language, and communication. In terms of communication, how often are we communicating? Are we communicating too much? Is it a one-way or two-way communication? And Gertrude Banks is really working on helping us with our communication efforts. Providing professional development for staff in areas of academics and social supports, and increasing student voice and agency. We want to make sure that the forums, the clubs, and inclusive teaching practices are what will engage students. So what better way than to ask our students what they need. And last but not least, branding Simsbury as one of the premier choice districts. And to do that, we have a new video.
Sullivan, Assistant Superintendent for Administration and the liaison to the Open Choice Program. In Simsbury, we're incredibly proud of the partnership we've developed with the Open Choice Program, as we were a charter district over 50 years ago to join this program. Our Board of Education is incredibly committed to the effort, and right now more than 160 Hartford students attend school here in Simsbury. Why do families make that choice? Certainly, I think it's first and foremost because of our top-tier academics. Whether you're looking at academic performance at the regional level or the state level, our district is always at or near the top. In addition to that, I would point out our exceptional programs in arts and music, and at the high school level in athletics, where we run one of the largest sports programs in all of New England. In addition to that, we're proud of an elective program that we're able to offer in Simsbury, where students can choose between things like engineering and theater and biomedical sciences that other places just can't offer. Finally, I would point to our real commitment to character education. Each of our 7 schools has a unique program to encourage students to do the right thing, most recently with an emphasis on social emotional learning and equity issues. We're proud to be a partner with the Open Choice Program. We think there are incredible opportunities for Hartford students to come to school here in Simsbury, but it's also just as important for our Simsbury students to go to school with diverse peers. Thank you for listening, and I hope you'll consider the Simsbury Public Schools for your family.
Hi, my name is Vicki Mahan, and I'm the Director of Children's Academy Preschool here in Simsbury Public Schools. We offer a full-day program for children ages 3 and 4, and are thrilled to provide an opportunity for students to engage in fun and enriching hands-on activities and allow them to learn through play. Here at Children's Academy Preschool, we strive to offer a welcoming environment for all students and help them develop positive relationships and become lifelong enthusiastic learners. We would love to have your child join us and become a part of our Children's Academy Preschool in Simsbury Public Schools.
My name is Mike Luzetti, and I'm the proud principal of Latimer Lane Elementary School here in Simsbury, Connecticut. With more than 20 students participating in the Open Choice program at Latimer alone, we've long been a supporter of this outstanding opportunity. We work hard with these students and families to make sure that they view Simsbury, and in this case Latimer Lane, as their home school. It's their home community, and they are a part of every single thing that we do here. We are excited to think that you might consider joining us here in Simsbury.
Hello, my name is Gertrude Banks. I am the Open Choice Liaison for Simsbury Middle and High School. With me, I have two students, and they will introduce themselves.
Hi, I'm Isabella, and I've been with her on choice for 11 years.
Hi, hello, my name is Josh. I'm in 12th grade. I started in second, and I've been part of the Open Choice for 10 years.
Simsbury has a strong commitment to the Open Choice program. Since the program started more than 56 years ago, we have parents and children who desire a quality education and work hard to do what is necessary to achieve this. Simsbury Public Schools has a strong academic programs. It has a rich array of electives, extracurricular activities, and athletic programs that students can participate in. We have a strong commitment to character education. Our students are also involved in many facets of Simsbury Public School District, actively excelling in sports, music, arts, and drama. All together, we want to say that Go Simsbury Public Schools!
Yeah, you still got the juice.
Never look younger.
Thanks. Stop the Jersey Mike's visits.
So we will continue to brand Simsbury Public Schools for Open Choice, and we're gonna continue to listen to our students and our families to make sure that we're meeting their needs. And I have to say that I am personally a fan of the program because my two first cousins graduated from Simsbury Public School through Project Concern in 89 and 90. And I remember the conversations that our fathers had about whether or not to send us out of Hartford. And my father chose, for me to stay in Hartford. He said, this is where I pay my taxes and the schools have to be good enough for you to go there. And my uncles said, but it's not just about the academics, it's about exposure and diversity. And so I was talking about Simsbury way before I came here. So, and my cousins also were able to host a panel during Equity Week where they talked about their experience with the current students. So Open Choice is a great program, and it's one that I'm proud to be supporting. So if you have any questions.
Anybody have questions? Comments?
I have a math question. On that slide that was a graph. It was early on that said 40%, I think, we're coming to Simsbury.
The acceptance rate?
The acceptance rate. Are we accepting 100 kids and only 40% are saying yes? Or are 100 kids applying and we're only taking?
No, so that's
So are there kids that want to come here that haven't been able to have the opportunity?
So those are the students that we accepted that then have to accept us. But remember, some students, they can choose up to 5 schools. So for some families, we may not have been their first choice. Maybe we've been their second or their third choice.
So 40% of the accepted students choose to come.
Yes. And let me go back to that slide. And I will share that some families apply and they don't accept any school at all. Sometimes families apply and they change their mind, or they decide to stay in their home school.
And you may apply to even magnets, right? So I've talked to families that have explored different avenues. Okay, we'll explore an open choice district, we'll explore magnet school options, and still think about the homeschool options. So people put a lot of different things in play.
And I wanted to show on this slide that overall, in general, if you look at all choice, their acceptance rate is around 35 to 40%. And Simsbury is always higher than the zone and all of choice. And this is where we really ask our families that personalized welcome call. Are you considering Simsbury? Are there some questions that you still have? And that also gives us information about what are some of the reasons why families don't attend and don't accept. Some of the families that I've called said that they were moving or they had already moved, and some have moved out of state. And, they applied so long ago that they didn't know what their housing situation was going to be. Some families choose not to come after they weigh the options of having their students stay in the neighborhood school because their siblings are in the school also. And that's where some of those calls are like, you know what, I'm going to call you back because I'm going to call Mr. Sullivan and we're going to see if we might have a seat for the sibling. So there's a lot of different reasons.
keep
But
the siblings
overall,
together.
it's between
Yes.
40, it's between
Real concentrated effort.
less than 40%. So we maintain our 40%.
That was what I was going to ask about is the sibling and then the number of families that have decided to come and then they've brought the other kids. And I don't know if we have those numbers, but I'm sure that factors into.
So if you express that you're also looking to get a sibling in, we're gonna find a school where that fits. Okay?
So if you apply at a preschool level and say you have a second grader as well,
I'm gonna try to find that. Now, what is hard to always make happen is because the only preschool seats are obviously at Squadron Line.
Right.
And so we might already have a sibling here. Here's a real reason why people turn down the preschool seats. They have a second grader, their preschooler applies, that preschooler goes to the top of the list. And then we call them up and they say, oh, I want them to be in the same school. And I go, well, then that means I have to move your second grader to Squadron. But next year I can put your preschooler at Tooten if you'd like.
right?
And they'll say, forget it, I'm just gonna turn down the seat. Or I'm holding out for a magnet school seat. I was exploring open choice.
'Cause that's
There's some magnet
free of
schools
charge.
right here that I was exploring, so, but I really bend over backwards to make family situations work.
And that is one of the enrollment strategies is from Mr. Sullivan to get that phone call. What can we do for this family?
If a student, now that the zones, right, go off of areas of Hartford, right? But if a person moves, in Hartford down the street, do they then have to rezone?
They usually have to get their child to a bus stop somewhere
In the zone.
in the zone.
They're
They-
cluster stops.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So if you've started here as a zone 1 student and you move to zone 2, you can stay in zone 1 if you get yourself to that.
I think that's how it
Yes.
works.
Yeah.
Okay.
You are not guaranteed transportation outside of your zone. You can accept, but then you have to
Make some
provide
arrangements.
transportation if it's out of your zone.
And then we will also, we have lots, it goes both ways. We have people who, their kids start in Simsbury, and for some reason they move to Hartford, and they say, can we become an open choice family? That they want to stay, and then we have people that start as open choice families, and they find a way to get housing in Simsbury, and they come off our books as an open choice student, but they're a success story in terms of being enrolled in our school system.
And that's where some of those other strategies work, where using some of the funds and the strategies, not just for choice students, but for all students that might need it.
Yeah, I'm happy to see that we're bringing together all those kids who might need the supports or just to support each other.
So I know you talked about the Eastern school tour. One of the things that I like us to be able to consider is having the kids go on the HBCU school tour. One of the things that I've found very surprising with the number of kids that we've had over the years, that none of the kids have gone to an HBCU. I went back and I looked, in the years that I've been living here. And I think we should expose them to that tour. And I think Mr. Jones and others can
Yes.
help with that, and Philip, some of the other folks we know from Hartford.
Do they come here,
So,
or is it like a virtual?
So-
What is
So
it?
it has been virtual for the last
because of
several years.
pandemic.
Yep.
It has been virtual, but in order for us to have students go, what we think we have to do is partner with maybe Hartford or another school because we don't have enough students. So we would partner with another school district to make that happen.
Right, and what
So
they do
that's a
is they
conversation.
actually go and visit.
Do campus visits.
They go do campus visits. That's right.
No, I think that's a great idea, and it'd be great to see if we could find a partnership that makes that.
And I wanted to just share, I think you all know that I'm on the, some folks know I'm on the board for Capital, but we do have a success story, and I didn't want to talk about it too soon, of one of our students from Simsbury that's gone to Capital and is currently in the Bridge to Morehouse program, which is phenomenal.
That's great.
And so in the background, I'm sure he'll, from his parents he'll hear, but I've been just watching and monitoring, and that's what's made me say this. And
So is that a
so-
guarantee if he's successful at Capital?
so what will happen is, what the Bridge to Morehouse program does is, you're saving some money by going to Capital. Your grades and all still have to be good, and these kids are going to go down. They're going to go in the spring down to Morehouse and actually visit the campus. But what that does is it's a bridge, so it's helping them to be able to get in. They'll still have a financial responsibility, but they've saved 2 years
Of tuition? Yeah.
by being able to go to that program.
That's huge. That's huge. That's huge.
Yeah.
That's great.
And so we have had someone from our district
Okay.
who's
That's
done that.
fabulous.
Mhm.
That's fabulous. I'm glad to hear that. Anything else for Dr. Batchelor?
So along that line with the HBCUs, at CREC, and you probably know this too, our magnet schools, our high school magnet schools, they do the tour of the HBCUs. So this
they
might
do.
be an opportunity
To partner.
that we have now celebrated for all these years.
That's right.
Simsbury's participation in choice, to be able to have maybe a little bit of more relationship
That's right.
or partnership with them when they do go down and see that. So, and as speaking of for CREC, around the table, around the CREC Council table, we are one of the districts of CREC districts, and that has the most successful. I think the most successful. I know Glastonbury is number 2 in terms, or Granby, in terms of their percentage of students. But we talk often about this, about the choice program, about the students attending our district schools and the benefits and a number of things. So I'm going to use your little PowerPoint and also the video at our next CREC Council meeting, where we do share a lot of this information. And CREC staff really appreciates hearing this also, because the feedback that they get from us is so important, just as we get from them and the families that participate in the chef settlement.
Thank you.
Thank
This-
you.
This was
Great
so
job.
informative for us,
good.
and I'm so happy to hear it.
One last thing. I really like everything, but you said, and maybe I misunderstood you, but a couple of times you seemed to allude that it was harder now to maintain that 4% than it was in the past.
It is because less students are applying through the open choice lottery.
And we have a pretty rapidly increasing enrollment now.
Right.
When for a
Less seats
decade, we have
available.
a declining enrollment. So as you'll see momentarily here, what our enrollment looks like next year, our kindergarten class, we're projected to be up over 120 students next year alone. It just moves the number on a program that's having trouble generating interest.
Why are less people applying though?
One of the reasons you'll see our decline,
Efforts
the
to keep in
hardest,
homeschools.
the largest cohort of choice students that we accept every year is preschool.
Preschool.
We opened 12 preschool seats. Since COVID, even when I offered 12 seats, I've yet to fill them in the last 3 years. One a year we only had 5 that accepted the seat. Many more applied, but when push came to shove, they said, in these situations, I'm not putting my 4-year-old on a van out to Hartford. So Simsbury. They made that choice, and this year, I think we're at 9. So I can tell you early on, like if we could fill the 12 preschool seats, it becomes easier.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, makes sense. This was so informative. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Ty, could I get the clicker for you?
All right.
Have a great night.
Excellent job.
Thank you so much. On to NESDEC enrollment.
Yes, and I think our board is now very familiar with this format, so I'm gonna try to breeze us through this and see what questions you might have. As you know, the big enrollment report comes in October, and this is the follow-up to show you that after we took the October 1 numbers and sent them off to our demographer, now again at NESDEC, that we get them back in November and we start to prepare the budget based on what they're telling us in terms of enrollment. So first slide shows where we've been, and it's this period of very flat enrollment over the last 5 years, ranging only, starting in 2018, briefly dipping down during the COVID year, and now at 4,064, but certainly very, very little difference from beginning to end of the last 5 years. That story changes when you look at the next 5 years. And you can see what NESDEC is telling us is that we can expect almost 150 more students just next year in terms of population. That, you'll see in a moment, that is due to a very, very large kindergarten projection, which caught me by surprise when I got this back. That's the largest kindergarten projection we've seen in a long time. Kindergarten projections are the most variable because all the other grades are kind of rolling up what you already have. With kindergarten, it's not already there yet. And it's going to depend on, it's a factor based on how many births there were in town 5 years ago and whether those people stayed in town, whether they're going to enroll their kid or wait till next year. There's a lot of factors in that, but we'll talk more about that. If you project out the next 5 years, if these trends were to continue, you could see as many as 500 more students across the district.
How does that compare to the peak?
That would be back, still less than at the very top of the curve, but we haven't been there in 20 plus years.
At 5,000 at the top of the curve.
When my kids were a squadron, it was over 900 kids.
Yeah.
And we're getting close.
With no preschool.
With no preschool.
Not to derail Neil's conversation, the big difference there, and we'll talk about it later on in Capital, we had, remember, real old modulars on all our elementary schools? So when we were at our peak enrollment, our physical plants didn't look like they look now. They had modular space in them.
So if you break it down by area, start in the top left quadrant, that's what I just showed you with the overall increase of 145 students for next year and over 500 beyond that. Below that, in the lower left quadrant, you see K6. And you can see they're projecting just about 100 new students for next year, much of that in kindergarten, but there's always a little bit of an increase factor in the other grades at the elementary level, and as many as 400 students to the elementary level in the next 5 years. Henry James, no surprise, will be a flat 9 students or thereabouts for next year, and a manageable number over the next 5 years of 86 students, which would, you might have to have a little bit of a staffing increase because right now we're running one team one grade as 3 full teams and one is 2.6 teams. So you might have to see a little increase there, and we'll monitor that. I think we'll be fine for next year. I think it's down the road that you may have to account for a little bit of an increase, but nothing that is going to bust a budget. And then we'll be in a period of very flat enrollment at Simsbury High for the next 5 years. Simsbury High had been declining, and now it's kind of leveling off. So if you
Pressure's all K-6 over the next
pressure
5
is
years.
K6. So that's the one that I've tried to break down here for you, so that NESDEC does break it down by individual school, and you can see no immediate concerns for Central, just a small increase for next year, but up to 40 more students in 5 years. Here's why you're building a new Latimer Lane school, a new and renovated Latimer Lane school. Well, 23 new students for next year. That includes a new kindergarten section. If the kindergarten projection for Latimer comes in as NESDEC projected, we're gonna have to add a classroom to a building that's under construction, and that'll be challenging. But the reason why the design of the new building is 4 classrooms per each grade, it accounted for this 552. So you've built the building to accommodate or you're building the building to accommodate that Latimer increase.
473 might be a struggle next year.
473 will be tight, but it's gonna be tight.
No matter
That's Latimer, no matter what we do next year. I mean, there's gonna be moving parts all over the place, so.
So what about what's happening at Squadron?
So Squadron is your biggest pressure point. Right now, Squadron is at 31 classrooms this year. That's compared to the 28 classrooms that they were for my first 6 years in this role. Just in the last couple of years, they've added 3 classroom spaces. And that increase right there is about 35 more for next year. And heading back toward where Miss Selena pointed out was the historical. If this continues, you're looking at 825, which would be a need to clear out some other programming if you're gonna keep that population in Squadron Line. Clearing out preschool or Ready, Set, Go to another building, doing something to recapture rooms at Squadron Line.
So what about, is redistricting?
It's certainly something we should put on the table and talk about.
Yep.
The problem being that when you redistrict, they're, from Squadron, for instance, some would have to go they'd have to go all 3 ways. They would have to go some to Tooten, some to Terriffill, some to
But
Central.
I think we'd almost have to look at the whole
town
together.
right.
Because I think this is,
The challenge with, and it's something we can look at, having done these models when I was in Glastonbury and early on here, the challenge of redistricting a large place that's busting at the seams, to impact it, you have to you gotta move down sections, right?
Yeah.
You have to redistrict a significant portion, and you're redistricting a significant portion into smaller places. It just creates a challenge by what you're trying to do as opposed to the reverse, right?
Right.
But something, we've done some minor redistricts we talked about earlier to try to keep class sizes down.
Yeah.
Whole different scale when you're talking about trying to eliminate grade levels from the place that's your largest physical plant.
Right,
I
like-
mean, the move to really get capacity is to look at the specialized programs, which we'll talk a little bit about later, but.
Right. I don't want to get ahead, like, going back to the 900 at Squadron, the preschool was moved into modulars at Tooten
And you had half-day
Central.
kindergarten.
and Central.
And you had half-day
And
kindergarten.
you had half-day
And you
kindergarten.
had half-day kindergarten,
So
gosh,
you-
yeah. So you had
six-
6 classes
Six
versus 3.
kindergartens only ate up 3 classrooms.
Right. So that's a big difference.
So that's, Terriffill to look at there, certainly okay for next year. If it ever got to 322, you'd have, there aren't any spare classrooms in Terriffill.
What is the max at Terriffill?
2 per grade is pretty much.
So that's like 60,
It's been about that
not even
size
60,
one
50
time
kids a
in the
grade
last
roughly at max.
Yep.
It's one of the two.
And then Tooten Hills is, you're looking at 20 more students for next year. That building definitely right now, it's 3 at every grade level with capacity to absorb some students at the grade levels. And I don't think you'd be I don't think you'd have the strain at Tooten that you will at Squadron. I should have added too, that what these projections for kindergarten indicated, that in addition to a new section at Latimer, it would indicate a new section at Squadron too. So those are the 2 places where we would have to add a section for next year.
Which will give you how many Ks at Squadron?
5.
Wow. Wow.
That's a throwback. And Central's okay?
Central's okay. Central's got 3 at every grade level right now.
And they're
Room and
comfortable.
class sizes.
Okay.
Okay. Henry James, we could just look quickly, you can see 627 right now with that slow increase up to above 700. Not something to stress out about.
Room for 6th grade?
Too soon? Not stir.
Not as currently constructed. So, and you can see, this is where Simsbury High School has actually sort of bottomed out now. And what you see is a very, very modest increase of 70 students or thereabouts over the next 5 years. Again, not something to
The peak there, Neil, when you were there was 16, a little over 1,600?
yeah, right around 1,600.
So,
I hope you all remember my favorite chart of this presentation, which I love to explain because it's where the math of this all comes in. The bottom solid blue line, tracked over time, is how many births happened in Simsbury during that calendar year. And then the red line above that is 5 years later, how many kindergartners there were based on that number of births. So right now, our multiplying factor, which is based on the last 5 cohorts, is every birth 5 years later becomes 1.54 kindergartners. And that's how they're building what they call a prevalence ratio in the business.
prevalence ratio.
So what you see though is I pointed these 2 arrows to how few kindergartners the births resulted from in the COVID year and how that ratio has changed. And you can see it's just because of the difference between the 2 lines. So the multiplying factor has changed pretty dramatically over the last few years, and they weight the closer years more. But what you have to see for the 5 years ago is just the blue line, focusing on the blue line. For some reason, after experiencing in the years before that, 167, 181, 195, 178, 230 births 5 years ago. And that's why they gave us this number of an incoming kindergarten class of 354. Which we haven't seen a 354 in kindergarten in a long time. So, again, kindergarten numbers are worth less in terms of counting on them than other grades, but we are going to have to be all over our families who might be registering kindergartners in the spring. We're going to really have to emphasize the need to make a decision and get back to us. Because if, no holding out to July on those decisions this year. We need to know who's coming. And usually, the first deadline we give families on that is April 1st. We're pretty flexible with it. we may be a little less flexible this year in terms of, say, we really need, if you have a kid that you need to register, we need to know about it.
So 354 is a projection based off of the 1.54
Yeah.
over the 230.
Yeah. Does that seem right? I'm sure.
Yeah.
By that number.
Could be less. Important number to watch, yeah. You don't know for sure.
And we're doing 5 years because that's our reliability. Those are the reliable numbers, right?
Yeah. Yeah, anything beyond 5 years,
Is a
they
guesstimate.
They say is a guesstimate. So there's my favorite chart, and then in terms of the go ahead. Dude.
Question, so going back to your deadline dates, April 1st is your first date for response, correct? First deadline for response.
The open house in the various 5 schools is late February, and they say we want you to return your materials by April 1st.
And-
But that means we then have to start calling on April 1st.
And then how many of them, since we'll be changing it this year, wait until the July 1st?
Not many. I would say we are fairly firm by May in knowing how many kindergartners are coming. There's always going to be a couple who hold out, but I would say by early to mid-May, we usually know.
The rub here early on is we need the budget for these 2 sections up front. I mean, there's no way around that.
Absolutely, and you're not sure how many, inward migration of students you'll be having coming in during the summer.
I have no way of knowing unless they report to us.
Right.
How many of those 230 families that had a Simsbury address 5 years ago and had a birth in their family still live in Simsbury?
Right.
But historically, it would tell you a lot of them.
1.54 more.
Right, in some towns,
Correct.
You're loving that number, aren't you?
Well, I get it. I mean, because that's
The statistical
but,
model.
yeah.
and in
it's
some
I'm a
towns,
stats
that
guy. I like it.
number is below 1. We had 230 births, our incoming kindergarten is 195. So the multiplier is 0.8 something,
Community
that's,
specific.
Okay.
so. And so just in terms of conclusions, we've already discussed what there's, it's 100 more students a year over the next 5 years, if this holds true. The incoming K classes as the priority. The Latimer Lane project, my hope had always been that by that fall of 2024, we'd be able to occupy all the space at Latimer. But we know that that's now gonna be midway through the 24-25
I was gonna say, what's
We're
our
not gonna,
timeline?
we're not gonna be able to take advantage of that new space until 25.
Right.
So, and we could, but that, we've known that for several months now. So in my head, I stopped counting on 24 a couple of months ago, so. Early 25. Yeah, early 25.
Early
yeah.
25.
Doesn't help when you've already started a school year, but.
Very good.
All right, thank you for indulging my numbers once again.
Any questions on that for Neil?
I think,
Budget related, I mean, it's the backbone of
Yeah.
how we plan.
right, and I think it's, I have the same thought as Sharon was, is there an advantage to looking at a town-wide redistrict? Does that buy us some time? Because one of Neil's prior presentations, and I can't remember which one, but you talked about us having some room to absorb some of this. And clearly, this is way more than some. This is a significantly bigger number. So,
Yeah, I think it's probably phases on that, right? It's an immediate, we were taking a look now at preschool space off Squadron's campus to get some immediate relief. And then it's organizing how we maybe take a deeper dive into other things.
right.
So I am gonna tee up Jason for the last presentation of the night. I mean, I have a little bit of the budget timeline after this.
So we're starting to talk,
We're
this
gonna
is
start
the
about
6-year capital
Yeah,
improvement.
so what we're gonna look at tonight is just what we have on the year 1 of that 6-year plan. All right? So
Right,
we
because
have-
that's really all that we're voting on.
That's what we vote on in the end. We'll discuss the larger 6-year plan, including a potential conversation about Squadron Line
Yep.
at the budget workshop.
Okay.
All right? Okay, Jason.
So I only have 3 items to speak to tonight, 2 of which are directly related to the enrollment numbers we were just looking at. So the Terrafil and Central modulars, the first 2 to talk of. Yes, the Terrafil modulars are back on the list here. Last year when we were putting the capital plan together, the Terrafil modulars were somewhat of a late entry into the discussion, and the research that led to the number of 350,000 was based on estimates that we were using for Latimer, early days of Latimer, when we were thinking about adding modulars to help with the phasing. In the end, we wound up not using modulars at Latimer, but we had those numbers, and we adjusted those up to come to the 350. After a deeper dive, bringing in 2 different companies and speaking to some of the challenges at Terrafil, specifically getting behind that building is one particular challenge in the demo phase and bringing in the materials. But also what's gone on, of course, in the construction industry for cost. So our initial estimates of 350,000, I'm not thrilled to report, really is 850,000.
Ooh.
So we're looking for an additional 500,000 on top of what was appropriated last year.
Yeah. So I'll just add a couple things on that. The site at Terrafil is interesting because the mods were put on Terrafil prior to the renovation that took place at Terrafil. So now when you face Terrafil, that beautiful cafeteria to the right
Yeah.
was not there before. It is very difficult. It's a very small lot to get behind to construct.
Why do we have to
build.
put the mods behind? There's no other place?
Well, no, and it's functional. There is no other place.
There is no.
Your parking lot, you're really landlocked, and it's actually space you need to operate the school, right? Because it's program-based space, so it's not like
So you
the
need it
mods
near
are
the
outdated like we did
classrooms.
with the other ones, and we can pull them off and do without them. We need the space there. So
So you can't put them, like on that side, when you come straight in?
Where the basketball court is
Is
what
that-
I think you're thinking.
Is that,
To the right of the calf.
No, I would have
No.
thought
no,
over where kindergarten is over there. Like I don't know how well you know Terrafil, but like where kindergarten
Side
is,
parking
or
lot.
Side
there's
parking lot. Yes, that's
also
what
a
I'm
garden
talking.
back there. There
Yes.
used to be a garden club back there.
yes,
Yeah,
that's what I was
There's also
talking.
the issue of the propane tank that's
Oh,
right
yeah.
there as
But
well.
that's off to the
It's-
side
it's
more.
towards the back of it, but it's
But
a
it's still there.
challenged location for parking to begin with. With
Oh,
the
it's
loop
terrible.
in the front.
Yes.
I-
it's just a tough site.
Yeah.
You lose all staff parking at that point.
The other piece is, when we just went through the recent conversations with the Board of Finance about
Yeah.
timing and projects such as the bleacher project
Yeah.
that we went back, their advice to us was try to work these things through the budget process, right? So
Right.
we're back. It'll definitely be the top priority because we had thought we had this taken care of last year, and we're gonna have to open up the discussions again.
Okay.
So the second item is central modulars, and as I said, speaks to the enrollment issues. By putting modulars on central, we could take 3 of those classrooms that are at Squadron right now and move preschool into that area, with an ultimate plan of having preschools at Latimer, where once the construction is done, at Central with additional modulars, at all of the schools, all of the elementary schools at some point. So this is a larger set of modulars, so whereas Terrafil we're looking at 3,000 square feet, the central modulars would be 5,000 square feet. And in terms of looking at the dollars from the estimates from Terrafil and from in those conversations, extrapolating that into a larger structure comes to a number of 1.35 million to do that project.
So to me, Susan, to reference the workshop, this conversation, I think dovetails with the other conversations, right? Programmatic conversations, what's the best way to respond to this increase in enrollment? And I think it's multiple things that need to be looked at.
Right,
This
right.
potentially being one of them, but
Yeah, no,
maybe not being the answer either,
I think this is like a good first warning for us all to start thinking about this, but I think it needs a much more deep
Yes.
discussion. And,
Understood. Yeah.
and some thoughts about how we go forward. Yeah, and like you said, years ago, we spent a lot of time taking down the modulars because they were they were dated, but we didn't need the space. And it's kind of funny that here we are again.
Is that
Purchased?
purchased?
Funny.
Yes.
Is that the only option?
We've had some fairly significant pushback on leasing anything of significant size. There isn't much appetite to commit to leases. I'm not sure how the politics have changed over time, but generally I've been.
From a town standpoint?
Yeah, from a town standpoint, I've been waved off of leasing.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
It commits future boards to decisions in the past, I guess was a good concern.
Neil, where are we with our, it's been a while since I've seen the slide that shows like the recommended class size, like before COVID, post-COVID. Are we back to pre-COVID class sizes? We are.
Yeah, so up to 22 through grade 2
Yep.
as a recommended top of the range, and up to 25 through grade 6.
And we're generally within guidelines
Oh, yeah.
across the district right now.
We're completely within guidelines.
We are.
Yeah.
I knew there was some talk about some bumping up against it, but
Who sets that?
we do.
It's your board policy.
We do. All right. Well, you've given
So,
us.
During, just to reference though, it was not policy, Brian,
Right.
but during COVID, we used 18 as a guideline for
For
COVID.
space and everything else, I remember,
Yes.
yep.
So that's the number you're referencing, but we never voted on it as a formal policy. It was just a way that as the state made recommendations to schools about spacing students, we got out there with a tape measure and said, how many can we fit, and said about 18.
So I'd like to go back to the conversation about leasing. Because, I mean, I understand what we're looking at, but do we have an opportunity to even look at what the cost would be if we lease? And is there an option to lease with an option, like everything, a lease with the option to buy? Because then, to me, it takes off the initial, and if that second year we really do see, not to say that this won't happen, then we go forward, with our purchase to help us. But I would like to see the
Well, that's something
numbers.
We can put that together, and we can bring that out, maybe at the workshop. and
Yeah.
Yeah,
Look
I
at the
think-
both and have the conversation about both.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's a really fair point. And what would be available in town? Like, if we get an idea of, is there even space in town that works?
Well, yeah. I was off record. I was going to come and.
We've taken a couple trips, Neil and myself. I mean, I don't want to say what the destinations are at this point.
Yeah.
But some pretty very viable option, at least for a minimum of, or maximum of 2 preschool rooms, which would alleviate some immediate space, right? So I think, again, it's like a short-term pressure
Yes.
release, and then how do we want to address this long-term, even with the bigger conversation in
Right.
way out years about what we want to do with the squadron line facility.
Yeah.
Sure. And then I think the next piece of that conversation, and maybe we also address this at the workshop, when we have everybody there, bringing back the Facilities and Enrollment Task Force and really having them dig into some of this and where there's room and just
Options.
help us dovetail it with the long-range plan we already worked on. Like, we need to maybe
Yep.
talk about how we're moving forward now in a different way.
And then the last piece, much smaller point to make, but just to round it out. Every other year, we either have a district network infrastructure set of dollars or a security set of dollars. This is the year for security, and the focus that we're looking at are the security cameras, which were originally installed in 2006. So many of them are aging out, and all of those are actually analog cameras, so there's far better replacements to be had.
And would that 250 do all the schools?
It won't do all the schools. I'm still working with the vendor to see how much of that we can do. I'll be working with Mark Ritz and the individual buildings to prioritize which we're gonna hit first.
Any other questions? Thank you very much, I think. And then the budget calendar.
Yeah, just the last piece of the puzzle, we've laid out the meetings and the topics of what we're gonna talk about. I think, yeah, is that date incorrect?
Yep, February, so the budget workshop
February
is Saturday,
4th.
February 4. It says
February
the
4th.
3 on here, but it's 4, okay?
Yep, thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah, so we'll come back after the new year, January 10th. That'll be kind of the kickoff into the budget. We'll do a program review for special education. And Katie Kursula will talk about potential special education needs there. Neil will do the larger enrollment and staffing requests, and then we'll kind of play all those things out. I thought last year's workshop was really great in terms of we'll do operating first, answer and respond to all those questions, and then we'll spend time on capital.
Okay.
All right, and you can see the various meetings kind of laid out.
Yep.
The one change, and I think it's a positive change, normally we conducted the 3-board meeting in November.
Yeah.
We were working with kind of guesstimates, not estimates.
Yep.
In conversations with Amy and Lisa Hevner and you, Susan, everybody thought if we could come together later,
Yeah.
we'll have real information there we can share. They'll have better information to try to help us provide guidance, and it's just a little bit deeper into the budget season, and I'm hoping it's a more productive conversation. All right?
Yeah, no, I agree with, that the early tri-board was always frustrating because it is a little bit of,
Yeah.
too many unknowns.
Yep.
So this will help us, I think, have a better conversation. So, all right then. With that, public audience. Mrs. Lang. You're our only audience. All right, the next Board of Ed meeting will be Tuesday, January 10th, 2023, right here in the conference room. And happy holidays to everybody if I do not see you between now and then. But I hope to see you. And I will take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Anybody? Or do you all just want to stay? All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you all very much.